Ha! About time I got to appear again. And I am going to show everyone that I am way better than that stupid laser brain frog. My friend. And since we're doing a fighting game, I am going to beat everyone with my fast reflexes, superior strategies, and perfect combos. Also, I have made sure to study all the frame data of each fighter so I am unstoppable. Damn, I am such a pro player. I will defeat everyone on the esports and climb the online ranks until I become #1 of the world. All fighting games fans will bow down to my greatness. So what do you think about that, loser? Ugh! How dare you to not respect my egomaniac toxic gamer speech? Could you at least make less noise when you eat? Even a caveman has better manners than you. Besides, the junk food is not very healthy. Go eat some salad, barbarian.
Sorry, been celebrating because this game is so much damn fun it is worth doing a party.
Oh, really? It is that good?
Oh yeah, the hype is well deserved, which we don't get to see very often these days anymore. But it is not just that. Remember when in the Street Fighter 6 first impressions video I said that I am more of a Tekken guy than a Street Fighter guy?
No, I was not in that video. Genius.
Oh. Well, anyways, I was not exaggerating when I said that even though I was introduced to Street Fighter first, and I like the story of those games more overall, I have to say I am more of a Tekken fan. The gameplay is so much fun with its complexity and its high number and variety of moves for each character. Also, I have put far more hours in the Tekken games than in any other fighting game, and because of that I think that I am far more skilled in Tekken than the other franchises in this genre, because I love these games that much. I guess you could say that I will gladly always get ready for the next battle.
Oh, I get it. You're a Tekken fanboy.
Yeah, you could say that. But that has not stopped me from criticizing the games. Like, for example, even though this franchise has been doing pretty well when it comes to its gameplay, keeping it fresh and adding new things to improve on it, for the most part, but the latest games had actually a pretty weak story. Not that I play fighting games for that alone, the entire genre is infamous for having a lot of bad stories.
Oh yeah, very rarely we see good stories from those type of games. But it is not that they only hire bad writers. For the most part, it is just that this genre's format usually doesn't blend to make a good traditional story.
In fact, I think that the game with the best story was Tekken 4, and it just went downhill from there. Tekken 5 was still good, but it was clearly worse. Then Tekken 6 dropped the ball, and Tekken 7 was even worse. So it seemed that there was no hope for the Tekken story. Until now.
I see. So what does this game did that all the other games didn't do?
Well, they did a really cool story mode, and it is not like they never tried that before. Tekken 7 had one of those too. Though you could tell that it was their first time because it was filled with problems.
Big Akuma problems.
Yes! For some reason they decided to make a guest character from Street Fighter canon in the story of Tekken,
Which was very dumb.
but we're not going into detail about that today. Anyways, if there's at least one thing that everyone agreed it was awesome, it was the final battle between Heihachi and Kazuya, because of how amazingly epic and intense it was. I mean, it is so good that I could make an entire video explaining why it is so good. but I will leave that for some other time. So I think that for Tekken 8 they decided that they should put all the aspects of that battle into most of the fights of the new story mode.
And what do you mean by that exactly?
Well, it is mostly making the gameplay segments more cinematic.
That's it? Didn't the NetherRealm games already did that?
I mean, only if by cinematic you mean putting very long cutscenes before and after each fight. It also didn't help that the writing in their games kept getting worse, using more time travel and multiverse plot gimmicks with each game. And it's absolutely awful by now. Even Tekken and Street Fighter at their worst were never this bad.
Hey, how you dare to say that? These NetherRealm games are perfect! Look at these awesome graphics! These excellent motion capture facial animations, and these super bloody fatalities, and also these really bad animations?
Well, why do you think that they moved to doing motion capture for the gameplay animations too? They don't know how to animate. Sugar Punch did some really good videos showing why the animation of their games was so bad.
This crouch animation is literally just a scale tool from Photoshop. This is like Berserk 2016 levels of lazy. Even if you wanted him to shrink as his crouch, you could spare even a few frames to actually drop into that new size, or even use that after image effect that happens every other time he uses his power.
I guess those games are not as good as I remember it.
I find it ironic that they pioneered this style of telling stories in fighting games, and because of this they were considered the best storytellers in the entire genre. But now Tekken has given them a run for their money by completely destroying them at their own game.
Yeah, it's quite ironic when you think about it. People used to think that NetherRealm was the best at this, and now they're seen as a bad joke.
But we're not here to rant about how much these NetherRealm games suck now. That's another topic with enough material to make an entire video on its own. So to keep this short, let's just say that the reason why their story modes never got much better is because they don't use the strength of the mechanics of fighting games to tell their stories. And just try so hard to be a Hollywood movie. Until the plot stops to do a forced pointless fight that most of the times it only serves as filler to remind you are playing a game.
In fact, every fight is lamer than in any other mode, because many things like the feature of the characters getting visible damage is off because it would not match the cutscenes. And you can't even do fatalities, one of the most iconic aspects of the franchise, because you couldn't just murder the current character you're fighting because it has a role in the story.
Yeah, a Mortal Kombat fight where you can't do fatalities feels really lame.
And you think that Tekken 8 did it better because it was more cinematic?
Let me explain. The fights in this story mode are actually memorable because they feel relevant to the narrative. The characters have banter as they're fighting that's relevant to the current events of the story. But also the dialogue changes depending on who is winning or losing the battle. There are slowdowns if their punches near clashing when the health is low. There are fight cutscenes in between rounds, and sometimes if the character gets hurt in that cutscene, they will start damaged in the next round. And sometimes in those cutscenes there might be a few quick time events.
Hey, wait a moment! I thought that you hated quick time events. You're a butthead hypocrite.
No, I don't hate them inherently. They just can be incredibly annoying when they're done poorly. But don't worry, these are not bad by any means, because they are never an insta-kill. They are very easy to do, with plenty of time to press the correct button. Not to mention that at most you will lose some health if you fail them. Another aspect that it is great about this story mode is that sometimes to make a battle more unique from the others, the characters might have more health, maybe it might heal in the middle of the fight, or activate the rage state from the beginning, or maybe activates the hit mode as well.
Most people might not know what are those, since the rage state has not been in a Tekken game since a long time, and the hit mode is entirely new.
I know, but we will explain those in detail once we talk about the gameplay. But if there is one aspect that is not so good, is that sometimes you are fighting in a battle that your character is supposed to lose, so that could be a bit frustrating if you are clearly dominating that battle and your character loses anyways. I remember that in Street Fighter V you always played as the winner of the battle, which was very cool. Though at least in Tekken 8 your opponent will do a finishing move when the round ends, so it makes sense why they got the upper hand.
Oh yeah! The story mode of Street Fighter V was not as bad as most people said. Even if it did have some flaws of its own, but it's still far better than most stuff from NetherRealm.
Another great thing about the story mode is the King of the Iron Fist tournament segment, where it is actually framed as a tournament format, and you get to choose which character to play as. Sadly, this does not have any relevance in the narrative, since the tournament gets interrupted. To me, this story mode will be perfect if it lasted a bit more and the last challenger you choose gets to fight Jin in the final fight.
And if that wasn't already great, later you get to play a 3D beat 'em up section where you get to beat the crap out of a lot of weak enemies that get easily defeated as if you were playing Dynasty Warriors.
Oh hell yeah, Tekken Force is back, baby! You even get to play as many characters and go back and forth between regular Tekken gameplay and the Tekken Force gameplay. My only complaint will be that this part is very short. I hope that in the future we get a full Tekken Force mode like in the good old days, with the option to play as any character you want.
Yeah, you don't even get to use Jin in that section, and he's the main character! All because at that point he's out of the battlefield for story reasons.
Speaking about Jin, the last thing we should mention is that a lot of people might complain that he gets too many fights. But Jin is the main character of this story, so it makes sense that he will have the most screen time, and that should translate to the gameplay as well.
Besides, it is far better than the 4 fights rules of the NetherRealm games, where one fighter gets filled with anime main character plot armor during the 4 fights where it's playable, and as soon as they end, that character goes back into being a useless jobber for the rest of the story. It is just an absolute zero care for the consistent power levels. In Tekken 8, if at one point it makes more sense for another character to get the spotlight from Jin for a while, then you will use it for a fight or two, and then maybe switch to yet another character before going back to Jin, because it is not limited to the stupid always 4 fights rule. That way you can switch between characters far more often, and there's no filler fights to fill the 4 fights amount.
Whoa! You really are giving no mercy to NetherRealm. I mean, I am not complaining, but I thought you liked their games.
Yeah, I did. But what can I say? Your evidence was quite convincing, and it made me realize that there's more things that I didn't like it about those games than I thought. Now I know they're just a bunch of super mega epic fails.
Well, I am glad that I could help you see their major flaws.
But don't get your hopes up. I am still far smarter and the definitive superior intellectual lifeform to all the jocks like you.
Okay, sure, whatever you say. Anyways, enough talking about the story mode. Let's focus now on what's really important.
The gameplay. You have no chance against me. I am already such a fighting gamer god by now. I will juggle you into the air for so long that you will never touch the ground.
Oh really? Then why don't you show me your skills in some online matches?
Yeah, it will be a piece of cake. What? Whatever. Damn it. I have been defeated countless times. I am worthless as a gamer.
Well, you didn't do too bad. But yeah, playing online matches is often a reality check of how good you really are. Because the fighting game players are incredibly competitive and they will have no mercy on you. But if you want to have a decent chance against them, might as well start from the basics.
I don't see how that could help, but let's do it anyway.
Tekken 8 is a fighting game with 32 characters at release, which is far more than most games in this genre get from the start.
This time there's only 3 new characters so far. Azucena, the coffee-obsessed Peruvian stereotype. Reina, everyone is new badass tomboy waifu. Sorry Asuka, go back to fight with Lily so the fanbase can make more hot lesbian porn of you.
And the last one is Victor. This one is my favorite of the 3, mostly because he has a cool sword and a freaking gun.
Hey look, it's Colonel Sanders! Don't you want to buy that weird KFC console from him? Remember they could also work as a chicken oven. So that way you could do your 2 favorite things. Playing games and eating fried chicken.
Very funny. Anyways, each character has plenty of moves of their own. So all of that makes this game far more complex than something with less characters and less moves like Street Fighter 6 or Mortal Kombat 1. So it might be very overwhelming for a new player to this franchise. But don't worry, you don't have to learn all the moves of each character in a few days to become good at it. The game is actually not too hard to learn if you don't try to rush it and take your time. But remember, just like for most games, the greatest help will be experience of you playing yourself. Guides can help, sure, but you will never become an expert with just that.
Yeah, that's what I tried to do, and look how it turned out.
Exactly. And unlike other fighting games, there's not that many buttons that you have to use. Most Tekken games only use 4 main attack buttons. For the PlayStation it will be square, triangle, circle and X. This, with different combination of the directional buttons, is what makes all the combination for the different character moves. Square and triangle are left and right punches. Circle and X are left and right kicks. Right punches and kicks are usually the stronger attacks that deal more damage.
The attacks are divided in 3 types: highs, mids, and lows. The highs are moves that can only be avoided by ducking and blocked while standing. Mids can still hit you even if you're docking, but can be blocked by standing, and finally lows can be blocked while docking, but will still hit you if you are blocking while standing.
But then you're probably wondering, why would anyone use hikes if they can be dodged by docking?
Well, the answer is simple. Hike attacks usually have better frame startups, which is just another way of saying they're faster. They also usually do more damage than lows.
I know this is a lot of information to process, but just try to learn the more simple moves and become good at using those. Later you can try the more complex ones. But the best way to start a combo is by doing some quick attacks first to punish your opponent and then finish it up with a strong attack. Another aspect that's very important to Tekken is the juggles.
In case you are filthy casual and don't understand what that fighting game term means, a juggle is when you attack an enemy who is in midair. This is very useful since in most fighting games, once an opponent is airborne, they can't block or parry attacks. And once you start attacking, they can't fight back. So because of that, it is a good opportunity to make very long combos until they reach the ground.
Exactly, and it is easy to learn but hard to master. Just make sure to do a launcher attack from your character moves list before you start the combo, and try to hit your opponent as much as you can before they're able to get up again. Some attacks can also send the enemy even higher into the air, even if they already are airborne. But be careful since sometimes they might be too high or too low to be hit by the attack you might use.
But not everything in a fighting game is about being offensive. Sometimes you must be defensive as well. And Tekken is no different, so make sure to block attacks when it's necessary.
But do not rely on it too much either, since not all attacks can be blocked, like grabs and command grabs. Luckily, you can avoid those by docking, or you can break from them by pressing a specific button depending on the type of grab. Also, in previous Tekken games, being very defensive was a great strategy, since your guard was very strong and it could block most attacks perfectly. But Tekken 7 added attacks with armor, and now in Tekken 8 there's also a lot of attacks that do chip damage.
Again, for the noobs in the audience who don't know what those fighting game terms mean, armor is usually a slow attack that won't stop even if your opponent manages to punch before the start of animation ends. So the attack will still hit your enemy even if he lands the attacks first. Though armor usually doesn't make you invulnerable, so you will still get hurt. And chip damage is when an attack does damage even though you block it, but without breaking your block completely. Usually it's not much, but if you get hit by a lot of these, they can add up and end up doing a considerable amount of damage if you are not careful.
This is when you have to learn to dodge attacks. For this you can dash to get closer to your opponent, or backdash to get away from them. Just double tap the directional button twice forward or backward. But since this is a 3D fighting game...
What do you mean? Most fighting games these days are done in 3D.
I know that most games these days use 3D graphics to model their characters and environments. But what I am talking about here is the layout of the stage. A lot of games like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat and Guilty Gear are often called 2D fighting games, since in most of the entries in those franchises, your movements are limited to a 2D plane, meaning you can only move up, down, left or right. But Tekken is called a 3D fighting game because you can move in a 3D frame.
Oh yeah, unlike those other games, in Tekken you can sidestep, which is very useful since some characters have projectile attacks, and since in Tekken you can't jump very high, it's not very useful to avoid those attacks like you can do in the Street Fighter.
Also sidestepping, which is done by double tapping the directional button up or down, is also useful to avoid close range attacks as well. And you can even quickly counter-attack after the sidestep, though some attacks like a roundhouse kick will still hit you even if you're sidestepping. But if you want to keep moving, you can also sidewalk by continuing holding the button after the second tap.
But those are just the basics of most Tekken games. So what about the new things this game brought to the table?
Well, let's talk about them. One of them is the hit system, which is represented by the hit gauge below your health bar. What this does is giving you cheap damage for all your attacks, access to a few new moves, and even enhances a few of the moves that you already have. You can enter the hit state by pressing R1, that does a hit burst, or by landing some special moves.
But one of the best aspects of the hit state is the hit smash. This is a very powerful move that does a lot of damage. But after doing this attack, you will exit the hit state, and once it ends, you won't be able to access it again until the next round. So it is not always worth to waste your very powerful hit state by using hit smash immediately.
But now let's talk about something that this game brought back from the previous Tekken games, like the Rage state from Tekken 6 and the Rage art from Tekken 7. The Rage state is a strong buff to all your attacks, but it only activates when your health is below 25%, while the Rage art is a super powerful move that can only be done after the Rage state is activated.
However, using your Rage art will consume your Rage state entirely, so you also probably shouldn't waste it by using it immediately, since not only does a very predictable move, but also you won't be able to use your Rage for the rest of the round.
Yeah, in Tekken 7 it was very common for a lot of players to use the Rage art right away, since there was no drawbacks. But now it is not a good idea because you will waste your Rage, which can sometimes be even better than the Rage art itself.
And now that you know the basics of the game, you can get ready to start playing and have fun with it. Just remember that you will never be as good as me.
But speaking of Rage arts, before Tekken 7 the franchise never had those type of very cool cinematic special powerful moves like other fighting games. And to be honest, in Tekken 7 they were not very good. Not just in the gameplay like we just mentioned it, but most of them were not that cool. Which is what these things are supposed to be.
Most of them were just a character does a move that throws the opponent very high into the air, then the character charges a move that hits the opponent once they fall down. So basically there were just a few moves that the character can already do in gameplay with slightly better camera angles.
But to be fair, they actually got a lot more creative with the DLC characters. And now, in Tekken 8, it seems that they learned from that. Each character has their own Rage art that fits perfectly with the personality and fighting styles. They also have a lot better and more cinematic camera angles, and even better effects to enhance the action. And honestly, that kind of stuff shows the attitude that has made this game so popular. In Tekken 7 there was an attempt to make the game bigger on a spectacle, since for years Tekken was looked down compared to other fighting games by the more casual gamers for looking lame and boring, since it lacked the cool looking powers of other fighting games like the Hadouken of Ryu or the freezing projectiles of Sub-Zero.
But it is funny that usually the first thing a casual gamer will complain about is that you are spamming them with fireball projectiles.
Which is why I think that it is not that the casual gamer wants long range attacks necessarily. The most fun in these games is always when you are in close range, exchanging punches and kicks with your opponent anyways.
My theory is that what the casual player is really looking for subconsciously is visual indicators to help them to notice the difference between strong and weak attacks. It is not just because it looks cool, though that still plays an important part of it. Yeah, a more dedicated gamer can notice that kind of stuff easily, because they can afford to spend a lot of time learning and memorizing the moves of each character. But a casual gamer needs all the help they can get, since they're not willing to put that much time in just one game. Looking at older Tekken games and Tekken 7, you can tell that 7 made a special effort to put emphasis on the visual language of the game, by using a lot of particle effects, putting to good use the technology of the new consoles. Though this was not very well received by a lot of the Tekken fans, since it kind of ruined the more realistic feeling Tekken had compared to other fighting games. And I can see what they mean. Though despite those complaints, they decided to continue that in Tekken 8. And they really improved on it, because you can really tell the difference. Not just with the graphics that, as you can see, they look amazing. You can tell 8 has far more budget than the previous games, but now it's a lot easier to tell what each attack can do and how powerful it is just by looking at the animations and effects. But it is not just that. The amount of single player content this game has at release is incredible. Yeah, we already mentioned the story mode. But this game also has a traditional arcade battle mode, in which you fight some enemies until you reach one of the super bosses from the story mode, just like the good old days. Though if you might be a bit disappointed that there's no endings, you can try out the chapter episodes. These come with an introduction of what the chapter is currently doing in the plot. Then you fight a few enemies, and you end up with a rival battle, and depending on the character you are using, then you see a fully animated cutscene. Unlike Street Fighter 6 that only gives you a few pretty drawings. There is also the arcade quest mode. Here you get to create and customize an avatar, and you gain to climb the ranks of the Tekken 8 arcade machines of the world. Yay! As you take the role of a Tekken player who wants to become the world champion. And if that stupid frog was here, he will make a cringe joke about Pokemon. I wanna be the best. And let's not forget about the Super Ghost battles. Not only you have the option to fight as many ghosts as you want to improve your ratings, like in most Tekken games, but you can even download ghosts from players from all over the world, and you can also fight a ghost of yourself to measure your own skills. Though I think the AI could be a bit better. Maybe it might be improved with future updates. Another thing that's incredibly useful is the replay feature, and I know this is nothing new for a Tekken game, but this time it has a few new options, like the tips that the game gives you of how you can play it better if you did something wrong. That's incredibly useful for a casual gamer that wants to get better at the game. What's even better is that you can take control of your character in the middle of the replay to try to do things differently and win the battle that you lost. It's like using a time machine to go back to the past and fix your mistakes. But be careful of retrying too many times, and sometimes you might be caught in a very difficult situation. So it's like being stuck in a time loop. But I don't care. I am not going to let the CPU defeat me again. Lastly, I would like to mention the special style, which is just a system to make the controls a lot more simple and easy to use. Very similar to the modern controls of Street Fighter 6, you can activate it at any moment by just pressing L1. And even though it might be useful for a casual gamer to have a greater fighting chance against a more experienced player, though I do not recommend to rely on it too much, since it is very limiting compared to the regular controls. Think of it as some very good training wheels. They are useful if you're new to this, but eventually you will have to grow out of them. Also, just like in 7, you can use a jukebox that allows you to freely customize the music of any part of the game with any music from any of the Tekken games.
which is freaking awesome, because the music in these games kicks so much ass. So if for example I want to put the character select screen music of Tekken 5 in the select screen of Tekken 8, I can do it. Let me show you. And speaking of customization, just like in a lot of Tekken games, the amount of customization options you have for each character is incredible, and all of it is with the in-game money. Meanwhile, Mortal Kombat 1 is really limited in that regard, and a lot of it can only be purchased with real-life money.
You were saying? Or at least, that was what I was going to say when I first started writing this video. But recently we got an update that added a store with microtransactions.
There is a new type of currency that are the Tekken coins that you can only get with real money, and the legacy costumes that everyone wanted can only be obtained by buying them with Tekken coins.
And they obviously waited a while so everyone did their positive reviews and avoid getting lower scores. You were being such a gullible nincompoop towards this game, but it was a false god just like Overwatch 2, and your blind faith only made it easier for them to stab you in the back.
While I don't agree this is nearly as bad as the horrible betrayal of Overwatch 2, so far, you're right. This is still really bad. I guess it was too good to be true. This is modern gaming after all. And I guess that's all we can talk about for now. I know that we barely touched on some aspects of the game, but I will leave talking about those in more detail for a full review that I might do in the future. But speaking about that, if this was a full review, that fucking store deception would have definitely reduced their score that could have been near perfect without it.
But either way, this game is still awesome, and talking about it in your stupid YouTube show was not too bad. Well, except for the part where I got completely humiliated in the online matches. But I will get better and defeat all those fake gamers. They only got a lucky streak, that's all.
Well, I hope that you manage to get better. But remember, what matters the most is to have fun.
Fun is for casuals. Online gaming is all about the glory of being the best. Now, if you excuse me, I am going to upload my consciousness on the internet to create AI duplicates of myself that will invade the Tekken servers and absorb all the players' ghost with their skills, meaning that I will become the perfect Tekken god. I just hope the AI doesn't betray me and tries to take over the world, like how it happened in the last online multiplayer game I played.
Good luck with that, I guess.
Ah, shut up! Don't talk me about it as if your small mind is able to comprehend any of this stuff. Goodbye, loser!
At least that went better than last time. Anyways, that's all for today. See you later, guys!